This is the Cliff Yates Show. Personal growth, motivation, inspiration, and philosophies for a great life.
Hold on, you're muted. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Cliff Yates Show. As always, you are in the right place. Another great guest I have on today. She's an amazing person and what she's overcome, and to be where she is today, having a positive impact on so many people. She's got several books that I want to ask her about, the 30-30s and the 40-40s, and she'll tell me all about that. And she's HollyPorterInternational.com is her website, and she's got a lot going on, but we're in the same headspace about having a positive impact on others, and I'm interested to hear her story. Holly Porter, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Cliff, for having me. Happy to be here.
Wow, tell me about, so you were, man, really on death's bed with COVID, and you had long COVID is what I heard from another interviewer.
Yeah, I have long COVID now and started a nonprofit because of it, but I spent 70 days in the hospital with the Delta version.
Oh my God.
So there were many days I was intubated 2 times, had a trach, had sepsis. So I'm a walking miracle.
Wow. So now, I mean, a lot of people didn't survive COVID, but sepsis is really a kind of a death sentence also, and you survived that.
Yeah. Well, and just being intubated, that's usually when you kiss it goodbye and they make you sign the forms while you're on your deathbed, literally.
Oh my gosh.
Sign your life away. And then they took me off too soon. So then I had to go through it again. So when you get to the point you actually need a trach, that's a good thing. And then they kicked me out of the first hospital and sent me to another one because they were so, they had a whole other floor with people at that time with COVID. So I didn't want to be there either, but.
Yeah, of course. Where was this at?
I live in St. George, Utah. It's about 2 hours north of Las Vegas. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And where's that? Where the hospital is overrun there, where you were? Or?
Yes, they added. I was on a different floor. About half of the people coming in there were not leaving, and it's interesting now that it's been over 2 years since I got out. I've talked to different people. We're still in a fairly small community, and one of the guys, a friend of mine who does real estate with me, her husband delivered medical supplies, and he said you would not believe the body bags that we were delivering there. And he said, and he was choking up telling me because he was delivering them when he knew, his wife's friend was in there and probably going to be coming out in one of them. Most people thought I'd die. Like I thought I'd die many days. And he just said, I just knew every one of those I was dropping off, it was not ending well. And there's so many things so many miracles happened and blessings that happened along the way, even though I do have long COVID, but yeah, we just grin through it, right?
Wow. I know you don't usually lead with it, but you relied on your faith a lot to get through that.
I did. I mean, for me, it's God. I respect whatever anybody else believes. Yeah. But I know, sorry, my earring, but I know what I saw. I had lots of experiences. I was in a coma at least 30 of those days, mostly self-induced.
Yeah.
So I was on a ventilator for 52 and a feeding tube for 63.
Wow. I don't know what the stats were on ventilators, but not too good, right? The percentage of people who survive.
Yeah, my sisters. So my husband had COVID and he was home for 3.5 weeks, couldn't even come see me. But at that time, I could have one person every 24 hours. And I had 2 twin sisters that they knew right from the beginning I needed them there. I know I would have died without them there. They do know it. I know it. It held the staff a little more accountable. They were able to help. And I'm a very independent person, but for some reason, I just needed to know that somebody was in that room with me. And one of my daughters also came and she spent time there. And it was, the nurses really liked coming to my room, they would say, because I was always kind. And I was always worried about them. Like, am I being nice to them? Because I feel like crap.
Yeah.
And they said, you were always grateful and thankful. Yeah. And my sisters kept music on and, they just made it comfortable. So when people came in, the energy in the room wasn't so somber because so many rooms, people were dying, right? That'd be a horrible.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have wanted to work there.
No. And I know they appreciate it because, I mean, not selfishly, but they don't get a lot of positive feedback just because of what everybody's going through. So I'm sure they really,
Yeah.
really latched on to that. I just had a friend, he just had a heart transplant. He's doing great, but he's very deep in his faith. He created a couple chaplaincies for the Rochester, New York Police Department, the Sheriff's Department. So he had great faith, but he was like, wow, he went through a time where he focused on Psalms 20, where I'm talking, are you listening to me, God? I'm talking to you. But he made it through, and he's got his heart, and now he says he's 40 because he's got a 40-year-old heart, but he made it through. But man, I was kind of living through him and thinking, wow, man. And he went through what you did. Knowing somebody was there was very important to him, and he just felt the presence of people and family there. Yeah.
Oh
Gosh.
yeah,
Well, thank God.
I had one. It's called the spiritual transformational experience, and yeah, it's personal, but I don't mind sharing it because I feel like the message needs to get to people. We all knew somebody that probably died from COVID,
Yeah.
and we need hope. Like we just need hope, period. And
Yes.
I can share. I'm happy to share that story if you want to hear it.
Please. Yeah, I would like to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right. So the pre-story is I have a cousin that is more like a sister, and she
Okay.
lived in Arizona. We're in Utah. And she sent a text one day to my sisters and said, I normally wouldn't share this on a text, but I feel like Holly really needs to hear it right now. And I wasn't doing very well. There were a lot of days. A week would go by and nothing had changed. And they were
Yeah.
updating social media. Everybody said they were updating every day. No, they weren't, because it wasn't good news and they tried to keep it really
Right.
positive.
Yeah.
She sent the message that basically just said that she was praying for us at church, and she's a feeler. I'm more of a visual person, and she felt the presence of all this family around, and she asked, may I know who's here? Got them individually named and had this great experience, right? Well, I remember hearing that, and I don't know if they had me pulled out of a coma and then I went back in a coma, but I do know that that was the defining moment when I knew I would live, because a lot of people praying for me and healers, for instance, would always tell me after that my mom, who had just passed away about a year and a half before, was always there and she was on my right side, which was a confirmation that I wasn't crazy. Yes, she was there a lot and on my right side.
Yeah.
Well, I went back in the coma and was ticked off because, kind of like the sisterly thing, like, because she's more like a sister, like I'm the one suffering. Why is she getting that and I'm not? I'm the
Yeah.
one, like, nah. And I was angry. And
Yeah.
that's when I got my experience. And my mom came to my side. And I know we hear it all the time, like, it's not your time to go. You need to go back. I mean, people
Yeah.
say that all the time. And it's true. That is what's said. My mom did say that to me. She said, and you need to fight. And when she said fight, which
Yeah.
is a word I don't really love, in
Yeah.
front of me appeared in white my grandparents who had died. Everyone in white had died. So grandparents, that's my favorite aunt, my grandbaby that just passed away 6 months before, but she was in adult form, but I knew it was her. My husband after that. So every time they said fight and chanted fight, 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 a new group of people. So then my siblings and my kids and friends, and then people I didn't even know, which now I know were people praying for me.
Yeah.
They just went on and on and on. In fact, it was so impactful that just shortly after I got out of the hospital, I hired somebody to paint this vision. And I could only
Oh,
have
wow.
28 people in it, which was hard because there were so many more. And it was hard to pick. It's to
Wow.
come on. So I had them shadows in the back, and it's a 6 foot by 4 foot painting. But that was my spiritual, but it was
Wow.
the defining moment, because my prayer many days was, this sucks. And if I'm not going to get better, take me now.
Take me now.
If I'm
Yeah.
going to get better, let's get on the program here.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Where's that hanging? Where's that picture hanging?
I call it my healing room. We
Yeah.
got a house, so it's a whole other miracle story. And I bought a hyperbaric because I have a lot of lung issues now.
Yeah.
And so I call it the healing room. So it's in there. And that's the challenge. A 6 foot by 4 foot. Like, I didn't want it that big, but they told me with that many people, like, the heads are full life size heads.
Oh, I love it. That's good. That's important that you have that image. I think that's
Yeah.
great. Yeah. I'm a believer. I just was watching with my mom. Have you ever seen that movie? I've seen it I think 3 times now. The Miracles of Fatima. Those 3 kids that saw Mary.
No.
Watch that.
No.
It was actually 1914, I think. It was in Portugal, and they saw these 3 kids with the sheep, and they had a vision of Mary, and she told them to return there on the 13th of every month for the next few months. And man, and at the time, Portugal had gone through a thing where they were even, the priest had to like preach in private because they would put him on charges. So these local priests in these little towns, I mean, they didn't want any press because they were going to be charged. So they pressured these little kids to recant their story. They brought them in, they threatened them. The head bishop in the area threatened them, and man, they never changed their story. And people thousands of people came from around when they started here. They tried to keep it quiet, and you have to see it. It's on Amazon. You can get it, or even on YouTube. There's a full-length movie of it. I think there's even a remake of it. This one was in the 50s, I think. But it's just an amazing story. And Lucia, the oldest girl, she lived a long life. She became a nun, and she lived to like 2009, and she always maintained. She actually wrote there was 3 secrets that wasn't supposed to be revealed to the 1960. And so they revealed a couple of them, but there was a third one that's in the Vatican. They say they revealed it, but people don't believe it. They don't think it's the real secret. But she wrote down, but it's a great story. But I mean, there's no way that these kids could have made that up and stuck with that story. And it was kind of similar to the Lourdes. You know that Lourdes where the girl saw the image of Mary and she started healing people? Lourdes in France. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, I think I have seen that.
Yeah. So, man, I'm a believer. Yeah. So, wow, that's great. Man, I've always, when did you come to know the Lord or know God?
Well, I was raised pretty religious.
Okay.
And I always felt like I was more religious than spiritual. And now I would say I flip that, and I feel like I'm more spiritual than religious. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We have a pastor here. He said, yeah, religion would have you say, I've done something wrong and I'm in trouble. And Christianity says, I've done something wrong. I need my Father. It's about relationship, right? Yeah. So I kind of like that.
Well, isn't everything about relationships?
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was telling a story. Yeah. And
sorry.
No, are you in the real estate now? You're a real estate broker or agent?
So I've had 11 startup companies, but I've been
great.
I usually have 2 or 3 companies, or 4 right now, or 5 that I have at a time that we have. But I have been a real estate broker about 19 years now.
Wow, that's great. I always tell this story over and over, but I was in the LA Sheriff's Department, and I got into a dark place with my attitude, and I said, I'm going to show them. I'm going to become a real estate agent, quit and make all sorts of money. And so my broker sent me to Jim Rohn. You know Jim?
Of course.
Yeah. So he sent me, I actually met Jim Rohn. This is like 1991. And I thought, this is supposed to be sales training. This was like life training, And so I was really impacted by that. And it got me on the road to, Tony Robbins used to work for Jim. And then I ended up going I ended up going to Tony Robbins. And then, so it was really real estate training kind of got me on the path. So then when I started to change, all of a sudden my police career changed and it took off, and everything, everything affects everything else. And so I really got into, that's kind of got me on my path today, so real estate kind of spearheaded that. Yeah. Wow. So that's great.
Well, it's true. When you change, everything changes around you.
Right? Yeah.
We always think it needs to be somebody else, and we blame, and we want to say it's their fault, but really in the end, if we look in the mirror and look at our own, we're just a reflection of things that are bothering ourselves about ourselves. Absolutely.
I felt that energy from you. You got a couple books. You got the 30-30 rules, and then you got the 40-40 rules. What's that about?
I actually have 13 now books.
You have 13 books? Oh my God. Okay.
Those were I have a book series and it's called the Rules Books is what I call it. Those were my very first books when I first became an author. So what I did was there's 2 versions of the 40-40 rules. So I gathered 40 women. Let me tell you what. In 2 months, that book came to fruition. Those ladies, I had to get action takers, and they needed to get their stuff in.
Good,
So we
good.
asked all of them 7 questions, the same questions, and they gave their answer within 1,000 words, each of them. And we
Great.
became international #1 bestsellers.
Wow.
And it helped all of them. I had a podcast show at the time for that, where help launch them and edify them. And they were all international bestsellers. So it's a great way to
Wow.
become an author, is to be part of somebody else's book.
That's right. Exactly. Are they available on Amazon? And
They are. I usually send people to my website, because that way I can fulfill it and I can write you a hand thank you and
oh,
sign
yeah.
it.
So we'll
I
send them
usually
to
do that.
hollyporterinternational.com. Great.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Just
Yeah, I
send
love
it
your
there.
website. It's really well done. You got a lot. You're offering a lot of services and a lot of community connection, all those things. I love it.
Yeah, I love community. I love building relationships. They're so important to me. And it's interesting that this experience, I had moved from a town about 9 years ago and moved to St. George, only 45 minutes away. But I ran for political office a couple times, and
Wow.
just was not my journey. Like,
Yeah.
losing was the biggest win of my life, honestly.
Yeah.
And I know that now. And I felt like when I moved away, my life started. That's when I started speaking, and I started doing these books and building relationships, but I didn't really know why. I just was spending a lot of
Yeah.
money and not monetizing anything.
Yeah.
And after I had this health, scare and almost died, well,
Yeah.
pretty much did,
You did.
then I
Yeah.
knew now those relationships are for now, because I was told in my coma to start this nonprofit. I would have never had a nonprofit for long COVID. And I was working on a software company that doesn't want to stay, a software company at the time. And I was partnering with somebody with a really big name. And God basically said in my coma, don't go that route. It'll take you a little longer, but that's not the right choice. And
Yeah.
so I listened, and we just barely went live after 2.5 years later on the software. And I just know all those relationships I built over the last 9 years, they're for now. They weren't for
Yeah.
then. I just didn't know why. And so if people are listening and you have some decisions to make, or you're wondering the whys of, I don't understand the purpose, I never could have told you my purpose until now. Never in my life. All these startups, all the things I did, I loved.
Yeah.
And now I know this is why, right?
Yeah. God will work through you. That's what I'm believing. People keep telling me that. Yeah. I was not brought up in the church, but it seemed like I was brought up under godly principles for sure. But I always knew, but I always knew there was a God. I just knew, and of course I read later that it's kind of implanted in you that you have that knowledge, and so I really believe that, because and then when I look back on all these things that happened to me, because I was a cop in upstate New York and then in LA, and there's no way that these. I could have been dead like 5 times. And I go, well, how did these things happen? And so,
Yeah.
and then somebody finally ministered to me, and then I began to know Jesus. And so that was kind of a turning point. But then, and you start to think to yourself, well, God, how come I waited so long, or this amount? But of course, we're in time. God's not in time. So, we can't question that. So it really doesn't matter when or where. It's the fact that we get on that path, right?
Well, it just takes some of us longer than others.
Yeah, right.
That's
I'm a slow learner.
Right?
No.
We'll get there. It takes me like 3 times making the same mistake. Oh, I get it now.
Yeah. I'm with you. Yeah, I love your energy. I'm into high achievers too. I don't know why, but maybe it's I went through Tony Robbins twice, the Walk the Fire seminars. Have you ever done that?
I have. I've done a few of his trainings,
Oh,
and
okay.
I've watched him actually do a 4-hour training without
Wow.
saying the F word once. I
Wow.
was so proud of it. It was in
Yeah.
his contract, and I think it was like a $50,000 or $100,000 fine, because I think he charged, I don't know, for 400,000, or maybe it was 250,
Oh my
250,000 to be there, right? Is what he
Yeah.
charged. So his fine, if he slipped and said it was in the contract, he had to pay.
Oh
a
my
huge fine.
gosh. I'm surprised, because he'll throw some F-bombs out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I saw him in, I think it had to be 92 or 3. And that was in Anaheim. There must have been 2,000 people there. And so then my wife, who wasn't my wife at the time, but she saw the change in me, and she says, I want to do that. So she did the 30-day program, and every goal she wrote down came true. And she said, well, if you ever want to go to a live seminar again, I will go with you, you know. So we went again in 2019, walked the fire again. But this time there was 17,000 people. So we were so far back. We had the screens there.
Yeah.
But the last day, Pitbull showed up, right? And it was such a great story. You know, he said, every day when I was a kid, I wanted to be a rapper. And my mom every time she picked me up, I had those damn cassette tapes of Tony Robbins playing. And now my jet's parked right next to Tony's out here. I mean, what a great story. And he sang like 4 or 5 songs. But
I love it. Oh,
I just get fired up about it. Yeah. So
it's amazing, though, you can get 17,000 people that are all being like-minded in that moment. And I don't think anyone really leaves unhappy unless they're just going to be unhappy, right?
Yeah. It was really good. I don't know if it was as good as the first time. It was good, but there was a lot of upselling to the business platform and the business program. They took a lot of time to be upselling, where they really didn't do that when I was first went. But it was still great. And we're on our condo on the beach now, just because that was our vision back in 2019 that was going to happen, and here we are. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you can't dream it. You can't achieve it, right? I mean,
Think
and Grow Rich. That's a book everybody should read every year. And another one is Outwitting the Devil. Have you read that one?
Oh, absolutely. I got it right here. Yeah. I have that, and then I have the deluxe edition of the Laws of Success. So,
nice.
Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. You know, there's several variations, but I mean, it's
I
just
have
so.
Think and Grow Rich like that. That's a hardbound that someone.
Oh yeah. It's hard to, it's hard because people, things become cliches because they're true, right? And like you said, just the experiences you have, people say they've heard this before. Well, it's true because it's happened so many times. You really have to take notice of that. But
Well,
so,
and if you want to change, who's going to make a change for you? You. And you've got to decide. That's one of the principles, right?
Yeah.
Just making a decision and just deciding. And you can change your mind in 1 second.
No, just pick a destination. So it's like what the sailboat metaphor. Just get out in the harbor and start negotiating. You may change ports, but at least you get rolling.
Right.
So how's your health now? I'm interested. How you doing? You still have long COVID, so how's your health? How do your energy? How do you get through the day? Because you're a high achiever.
It's on the day, and because there's relapses. So I have several diagnoses that the fatigue's the worst, and so I can be fine 1 minute, and 2 hours later I'm like, oh my gosh, I can barely move. So it just depends. I do lots of things for my health, and I walked in the hospital, no drugs, walked out with 12. Now I'm drug free.
Great. Oh, congratulations.
So I natural as I can, but I found DNA botanicals. Those help me more than anything, and it's like sucking on a lifesaver. So that was a game changer for the pain, and we just have to find what works, right? I just feel like better is better, and we can sit and lay in bed all day, there's so many diagnoses I got. I could have been on disability, but honestly, for me, it was like I could go sell one house and get what they pay you on disability in a year.
I know.
Sadly.
Yeah, sadly.
And so even though I qualified many times, it wasn't worth it to me. And so, like I said, it's more, I think I survived because of the mindset I had. I had nurses that told me that too. They said, really, more 90% of it's your mind over your health. Yeah.
I love, you said somewhere, what you're all into, instead of getting bitter, you get better. I just like that.
Better's better, right? Yeah.
Better's better.
Whatever you're doing, if it's helping, I do so many things that I can't pinpoint. People say, I lost 85% of my hair 2 years ago.
Oh, really?
It was devastating when I was a hairdresser and for the last 40 years and had a salon, and that was devastating to lose my hair. And I did so much stuff to grow my hair back that I've cut it in 2.5 years. I've cut it 10 times and thinned it. It was strange.
It looks beautiful now. Yeah.
Oh,
so you had a hair salon? Do you had a hair salon?
I did. I had a salon in Spain for 20 years. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's great. It's funny. So when I was with the LA Sheriff's Department, and when I said I'm going to a Tony Robbins seminar, and at the time they, you're paying $600 to go hear a guy talk, you could pay me, there's a lot of negativity. And then when I get to the seminar, right, it's all these people. I'll just never forget a lady out front. She goes, I got 6 salons in San Francisco. I brought my whole team here. I paid for them all to come here. And I go, oh my God, these people they're like me now, So like the like-minded So
Yes,
great. Yeah.
it is.
Yeah,
I had some family members that were in the police. They're both
oh,
about ready to retire. One was in Las Vegas, one was in Phoenix.
oh my God.
And
Thank
I always
God.
thought
Yeah.
they were so weird because they were so like worried about all these things that, I grew up in a small town. We used to leave our keys in our car.
Yeah.
And anyway, I always thought it was just so strange to lock your doors, but I'll tell you what, we had somebody we lock our doors now, but I woke up last May, so not even a year ago, and because of long COVID, I have to wear a CPAP now and I have
Yeah.
sensory issues, so I wear speakers in my ears with a mask
Oh, I
for
heard you
light.
say that. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so anyway, the alarm goes off at 6 a.m. and I kind of like felt something and I look up between the mask and there is a grown woman sitting about 8 inches in front of my face. And I'm
Oh my.
like, who are you? And she says,
Yeah.
I don't know. She literally walked in our house in the middle of the night. She was in bed, we figured, with us for hours because
Oh my
she probably
God.
came midnight, 1 o'clock, and the alarm went off at 6.
That's
So
scary.
somehow we slept through it all. Yeah, I was actually, my kind heart like was more worried about her, where so many people were
Yeah.
like, I would have shot her, like that was dangerous. And anyway, she didn't know who she was, how she got there. It was crazy. My husband goes and gets in the shower because I think he thought she'll feel safer if he's not there. I
Right.
took her in
Yeah.
the other room. And I mean, he goes and gets in the shower like it's just another day to wake up with the stranger in our bed.
That's crazy. How big was the
It was.
small town you grew up in?
Well, I moved from Las Vegas when I went into high school to a city that I had to get bused into, Cedar City, Utah, and it was New Harmony, Utah. And then it's bigger now, but population 198.
What? Oh my God. That's not even a God.
There was no store, no gas station at the time. Yeah, it was nuts. So we were about 20 minutes from the town, and yeah, it
Yeah,
was
I grew
crazy.
up in upstate New York near Rochester, but
Oh
outside.
no,
So we had 3,000 in our little village, and my dad was chief of police, and he had three
wow,
officers, and like you said, my mom, I just visited her, and the door is still not locked, and so they're living in a different
yeah,
mindset, and there's no crime, there's nothing. It's so cool. But and then I worked for the local sheriff's department there for 5 years, 20 deputies. And then I went to L.A. with 10,000 deputies, 19,000 just in the jail system. And, I
gosh.
worked in Compton and shootings every night. It was like, what? This is
Oh,
wonderful. But
yeah.
what a
Well, yeah,
time.
I wish we could do all our real estate deals with a handshake, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, there's a lot of dishonest people out there. And
Ah,
when I
yeah.
ran for public office, that was probably my biggest lesson that came out of that the
Yeah.
first time. It was a city council position, and it was that how mean people were. Like that
Yeah.
really truly broke my heart. That was
Yeah.
a lesson I didn't understand. I just thought everybody treated everybody like I did,
Yeah.
you know, and they don't. And
No, they don't do it. Yeah. It's weird. Yeah. It's funny. Not really funny, but a couple people I've talked to, they were actually glad they didn't get elected. A couple people that I follow even on social media,
oh, yeah,
they had ran
best.
for.
I
That,
honestly, and I truly mean, I would have had a heart attack if I would have won that second election.
yeah.
Um, because I don't think my heart could have taken all of the secrets that you actually really can't tell,
No,
right?
that's
Not that
right.
you hide
Yeah.
it, but there are things that you just can't disclose. And I don't think I could have taken it. I feel like transparency is number one. What you see is what you get. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to hide, and if there's something wrong, or don't break the rule, change the rule, right?
Yeah.
And people don't think that way. And so it wasn't for me. It was some good lessons to learn. I had a lot of changes I could make, but I feel like I can make more changes not being there than I could have
Yeah.
been.
You can have more impact and more influence probably doing
Mm,
what you're doing now, but
yes.
still being involved in great America. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, I feel like with my software company, it's going to change so many lives in itself that I see it. That it's just such a bigger vision now that I've never had before. Like I see the end game. There's a
Yeah.
lot of parts moving in between that maybe I just need to find the right people to help me with. But I
That's right.
see it changing, and what it's done, all the things that have happened were the lessons I needed to learn to create what I'm creating.
Yeah.
Because money never was my motivator. It is a little
No.
more now because I'm seeing how much money it's going to take to make the change I need to make.
Yeah, which is okay because that will just expand your reach, and it's a good way to keep score, and it's going to allow you to have more impact on other people. So, and then it's really right. Jim Rohn said, I mean, that's the market will pay the value you bring to it. So, if you're bringing that value, you deserve the revenue in return, and you know what you're going to do with it. So, I think that's important. Yeah. I follow a guy, Victor Davis Hanson. He's got a podcast. He's been a professor at, I don't know if you know him, but
I don't.
He's had long COVID. He's over it now, but it was like 10 months, and he used to talk about it all the time on his podcast because people don't know long COVID. But I'm in month 6, and I'm still have the effects of it. And so I
would love his name if you'd send that to me.
Yeah, I will.
We have a podcast for the nonprofit, and the only guests we have on there have long COVID. They're a caretaker of someone with long COVID, or medical and holistic. And I have lots of connections for the holistic side, but the medical and just reaching out and finding, there's 65 plus million documented cases of long COVID.
Oh my God.
So I need to have some, and I want the success stories, people that have recovered.
Yeah. I'm going to send you his information. Yeah.
Know that is possible, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you still have the podcast, the Holly Porter podcast?
I do. We just started actually the first of the year. It's called Hopeful Horizons podcast.
Hopeful
and it's on
Horizons. Okay.
Apple. It's on all of them. It's just, it's just the guests are so limited, right? Of who we can have. I'm always looking for guests that are willing to share their story. They don't have to be building a business or anything like that, because that's not what this podcast is about. It's about giving hope and creating awareness, because a lot of people, including people in the pulmonary doctor's offices, literally have been known to say, "What's long COVID?" And they work in the pulmonary office. And I'm just thinking, are we like under a rock? I've been to 2 doctors the last couple of weeks, new ones. Well, one was an ear, nose, and throat. And both of them said to me, "You teach me things every time you come in." I'm thinking, well, let me bill you, right?
Yeah.
Because you're expensive. It's like, nobody knows what to do with us.
It doesn't surprise me. My dad had diabetes, and so he used to, he knew he knew how many cc's would bring him down to a certain level of glucose level, sugar level. And man, one day they were giving him the wrong stuff, and he goes, "How many? That'll put me. I'll be in diabetic shock." And they go, "Oh, we have the wrong." So he knew. Why are you giving? I'm already high. I'm 300. You're giving me apple juice, and they didn't know anything about diabetes. So you really have to be an advocate for yourself if you're aware of what's going on.
I was just going to say the same thing. I learned my lesson the day I got pulmonary fibrosis diagnosis. That was my first diagnosis out of the hospital.
Yeah.
And that pulmonologist, which I do not have anymore, by the way, he turned around. It wasn't like, "Hi, how you doing?" Whatever. It was, he turned around. The first thing he said to me was, "Well, we ought to probably talk about putting you on a lung transplant list."
I heard you talk about this on another show. Yeah. Go into that. What the heck?
I was just like, what are you talking about? Well, first of all, back up. This is like the top 5 days you'll never forget happened in your life, because an hour before that appointment, maybe 2 hours, when I woke up that morning, I had a gut feeling to check your bank account. We were in the middle of buying a house. And so my down payment to the house was in there. We had 12 accounts in this bank, and someone had done what they call an account bank takeover. So they had gone in there for a couple of days and moved money around and then transferred it all out, including my down payment to my house. I got it back really quickly. The bank was great to work with, but I was already really shooken up because at that time I didn't have the money back. It was just gone. And then I go in and I have no advocate with me, which was my biggest lesson and mistake. I didn't realize to have somebody there when you go to these kinds of appointments, especially with COVID, because of the brain fog, you're not remembering half of it. So either record or take something with you that's going to take notes, or both. And he told me that, and I, of course, big crocodile tears, and he said, "Well, we can talk about it another time. You just gave me a death sentence," which I didn't know at the time because I didn't know what pulmonary fibrosis was until I went home and Googled it, which is not your friend.
No, that's not good. Yeah.
No, you're dying if you Google, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm like, oh, he just told me I have 2 to 4 years to live, or I get a lung transplant, which is worse than a heart transplant, which might give me 10 years. And then I'm
Terrible. Oh
thinking,
my God.
why did I live to go through this hell? That
Yeah.
was my thought. But it was just the bedside manner. It was like, well, we have a diagnosis. And I'm thinking, well, start with that. Like, why are you telling me? I mean, a lung transplant, that's like a big deal, right? So
Yeah,
anyway,
my dad had passed, but so my mom had a new boyfriend. He was 93, and then this was after he got a like a squamous, it's like skin cancer, but he got it on his throat, which was odd. And so the nurse was trying to, and my mom's really, vivacious. And so they were really telling him, well, we're going to do this and, basically treat him like he has terminal cancer with,
right.
And so my mom was like, you haven't even got the test results back. And you're acting like he's already got cancer and, you're going to want to take his voice box out or whatever. And the lady was like, well, I'm an expert in this. And then, I've been dealing with this and so, man, so it came back negative. It was not cancerous. It was none of that. And the lady ended up apologizing. But, they went down, like you said, that road of, well, you're probably dying. What? But I mean, they kind of default to the worst case scenario. Maybe it's good intentions,
Sure.
but you know how important but you know how important mindset is. I mean, that can affect. Wait, do you ever hear of that? What do they call it? Well, they call it different things. I think they call it white coat syndrome, or they have that's like for blood pressure. But they had these medical students, and they were so focused on these diseases, they would manifest the symptoms of these diseases they were studying, even though they didn't have it. How powerful the mind is in creating that. So, and for wellness, it goes the same way. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's 200, I don't know if you knew, symptoms linked to long COVID.
No, not at all. I know nothing about long COVID except for what Victor Davis Hanson said. And then I have a cousin who did, but now I'm learning from you.
Yeah. Well, I've had, lots of issues from that I didn't have before. I think what it does is it just catches things on fire. And I think one thing I will say, if you have some symptoms or health issues that have come up since you had COVID, you probably just haven't linked that they're connected. And a lot of people just don't realize, but I had melanoma twice in 7 weeks last year. I mean, that's my scar.
Oh my God.
Clear back.
Oh yeah. I've had one. You know what happened? What happens is it could be something small in the surface, right? And they got underneath that and they found it was spread. So they had to cut. Man, they had to cut you.
Well, and I was scared because any surgery they intubate you for. I don't know if people knew that. I never knew you got intubated for surgery. Most surgeries.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
And
no.
Like when I've had to do like a colonoscopy, anything I've had to do since, I like begged them. Like when I first had my first melanoma, I begged him to do it in his office. I was just like, dude, just put me, just numb it up, Yeah. And so he did. And then I had him take a look at another spot right after that. And he said it was worse than the other one. And he wouldn't even biopsied it. Like he didn't even think it was, and it was worse. So he said, because it's worse, you need to get lymph nodes out. So I had to have surgery across there underneath. And then I had to go to the hospital, and it ended up doing the surgery, one of my high school guy friends that I knew, and he fixed the other scar. So instead of going straight across, he added them together. So now it's a big long one, but I only have one instead of two big ones.
Well, that's nice.
It's been a road. I'm telling you, because I never had anxiety, depression, PTSD, like all that came out of being in the hospital, and people just have no idea. Like your psyche, what it does to you.
Yeah. But now you've overcome this and you can really coach people through those things. Is that part of do you coach people through those kind of things or?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I have been a coach for years. I do more consulting. Yes. Yeah. I like really people that are willing to move forward and that want to get better. When people ask me like, not just what did you do to make your hair grow or what did you do to get better?
Yeah.
My first question back to them is, what are you willing to do? Because I have a huge long list and my breath matters to me.
Yeah.
My time matters
especially
to me.
For
and
you.
If you
are
going to help and you want to get better, then I want to help you.
Yeah.
But if you're just asking me the question just so you can decide, that's my question. How much do you want to get better? How much do you want your hair to grow?
Exactly. So you probably can relate to this. So my broker, I would come to him, hey, these people are thinking about selling their house. He was Armenian, so he had an accent. So his first question was, Cliff, what's the motivation? What's the motivation? And they're not motivated. They don't have. Well, they're moving jobs, and the company's going to pay for them to move them. Okay, they're motivated. They're going to be moving. So he always wanted to know the motivation. Cliff, what's the motivation?
Yeah.
But it goes to what you were saying is, do you really want to, are you just asking for conversation? Or do you really want to make a change?
Yeah. A whole new, I don't want to waste my breath. It means a whole
for
new
you,
thing nowadays.
That means a hell of a lot. Yeah. I mean, my God. Yeah.
The nurses said to my sister many times in the hospital, and I remember listening to hearing them say that because I had anxiety out the roof and I had never had anxiety.
Wow.
So it was worse because I didn't know what I was feeling, right? You haven't had that emotion. And they're like, are you sure she wasn't on medication for anxiety? Because it's really bad. And you know, after I got better, I was like thinking about it and I thought, well, let me take your breath away and let's see how you react.
Yeah. If you can't breathe, my God. Yeah.
Breathe. You're pretty much acting crazy, I'm sure. You know?
Yep. Exactly. Wow. Wow. Awesome. Man, you've done, I can't believe your story. That's great. Are you going to write a memoir on that or you started
in
yet?
progress. Yeah. I was hopeful it would be out by the end of this month, but it's not. So it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not committing to a time frame because my other books I did on my own, but this one I have somebody helping me with just because of all the brain fog and there's things.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I want it to be, actually, this is why I want it to flow because I have 13 books either that I've done myself or I've brought people in with me to do. And none of them really made sense, just like my purpose, that whole story I said, similar. It's like now I need a book that's not just going to tell this story. It's not going to talk about my near-death experience. It's going to be like a roller coaster ride of all the experiences and why the nonprofit came about and why this endgame software company is it, right? Like why that's like the company I'm going to retire from.
Yeah.
And it's a story that I want people to say, oh my gosh, I'm going to buy a copy for all my daughter-in-laws or all my kids or my best friends or whatever, it's that type of story. So I solicited some help from somebody who is way better at writing than I am. And that way she can intertwine everything. And I think the working title for it is because the software is a retreat leader software. So it's called Retreat Forward.
Oh, okay.
My journey from NDE, so near-death experience,
NDE
to CEO. Yeah.
To CEO, I like that. That is a great title.
So that's our working title. It feels good, so it'll probably stay that, but don't mark my words.
Yeah, because things change all the time. Yeah, absolutely. I like that you're writing that with someone else, like you said, brain fog. So my friend who had a heart transplant, his wife took copious notes during everything that was happening. A lot of time he's out, and so she can fill in those gaps of what was happening when he was going through things that he wasn't conscious for. So I'd like
to suggest one thing too for the listeners, just if they're experiencing or they have family that is experiencing, a couple tips. I love that idea.
Yeah.
On top of that, I would start a binder. Make sure you keep copies of everything and all the notes or the recordings, because you can put those in your phone now. You can put them in your notes, put the recording and paste it in your notes, and then you have them all there. And then they're with you all the time.
Yeah.
They're backed up by the cloud. So that's another suggestion. But I would just keep records. And then another thing I would do was I went way back on my social media, all those posts, and I printed all of that out because in each post my sisters would do, there was anywhere from probably 180 to 400 comments every time. And they weren't like, get better, prayers, it was like a sentence or two or three or paragraph. People were like so heartfelt because nothing in the world has changed the world and affected the world so quickly as COVID.
No, that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone was affected by it. It changed. I mean, forever it will be in the history of, the pandemic, whatever. I mean, everybody knows. So
we're a part of it. Yeah. All right, we're coming near the end here. Let's wrap up. You have anything? I want to send people to HollyPorterInternational.com because that you have your books on there. And if they want to get a hold of you for coaching or whatever, and you have a lot of irons in the fire, it's like me. Why are you doing that? Because I want to do it. People, you don't have to be doing that. I want to do it. So any final words, Holly? And I want to thank you ahead of time for joining me. I know your time is precious.
Well, I want to just put a selfish plug for the nonprofit.
Please,
if I
please
can
do. Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So if your heart's called to, the other thing is I have somebody who has real estate dealings, and instead of paying the IRS, they donate to nonprofits.
Oh,
So if
good.
that's something in your wheelhouse you want to chat about, I would love to find more people like that so
Yeah.
that we can get some of the money to do good with and not just give it all to the government. But
Yeah.
our website is adventure bucket wish, not list, wish.org. So adventurebucketwish.org. And you can go check out what we do.
Adventurebucketwish.org. Adventurebucketwish.org. Okay, so we'll put that in the show notes of the podcast platforms, and also in the YouTube description. We'll throw it in there.
Thank you.
That'll be great, Holly. You are awesome. Great energy. God, thank God you're here and that you made it through it. Obviously, you have a greater purpose going forward, and you survived it. Look at that beautiful smile. So I'm so thankful that you were able to join me, too. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on, and you're
Absolutely.
a great interviewer. Thank you for
thank
keeping
you.
things positive in the world.
Thank you. Hang around for the post-show debriefing. So everybody, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, or subscribe to one of the podcast platforms. It tells the computer that you're interacting with the show, and they'll send it to more people. That's how it works. You know I love you.